Welcome back into this month's episode of the ICLA Podcast, Licensed to Lead, Business Behind the Brand. I'm your host, Jason Harbison, coming to you from the campus of Auburn University. ICLA's goals are to provide unbiased, industry-leading resources focused on improving the overall understanding of the collegiate licensing industry, further development of licensing professionals, and increase the collaboration of licensing professionals across our industry. My guest today is Craig Westemeier, the Senior Associate Athletics Director for Business Development at the University of Texas. Craig's appearance wraps up our podcast conversations with the newest inductees into the ICLA Hall of Fame. I'm excited to welcome my friend Craig Westemeier to Licensed to Lead, Business Behind the Brand, joining today via the Sewing Concepts Hot Market Hotline. So Craig, thanks for joining me and congratulations on being inducted into the Hall of Fame. What an accomplishment.
Thank you, Jason. It's, I think it's always an honor to be recognized by your colleagues and certainly the nomination process. And it's a real honor to have that kind of respect to be elected into the Hall of Honor and represent the industry. And hopefully I've done a good job of that over the years that I've been here at the University of Texas.
Yeah, for sure. It's always been great to get to know you. I know you and I have spent many different trips together, and it's always great to get to know our industry partners. The collaboration of licensing professionals that is in our goals there. I think that's one of the most fun things people don't really understand about our industry, and I hope that carries over to other industries, but I'm not sure that it does.
Yeah, I think it's, I think the interesting part I like to talk about is people talk about the fields and courts and how competitive our teams are. And, at the end of the day, we're not like that. We don't look at that in our industry as though, Texas, there's not a fan going to a sporting goods store and saying, oh, well, I'm either going to buy this Texas or I'm going to buy this Auburn. And they're not really wavering on that decision, right? They know who they want. I think there's some visitor type scenario, certainly where, maybe somebody just likes a shirt, likes it, that says the city or school name on it, and they buy it for that reason. But at the end of the day, the fan, the core fan and our core consumer is not deciding over one or another. And I think that's what eases that collegial communication that we have, and everybody wants to be successful, knowing, your success is not going to hinder my ability to be successful at what I do. And, I think the second point I'd make on it is we all have kind of the same challenges. They may be a little different, a little nuanced for each institution, just because of some of the variations there, but they're all the same. They're all kind of the same ones at the end of the day, no matter how big or small your program is or successful you are on the fields and courts. Those things don't matter. We still have all of our challenges, logo guidelines, policies, how to politely say no to someone who wants to do something that you're just like, it's just not the right thing that we want to do in terms of managing our marks and logos and how we want to be represented.
Yeah, you're right. You cannot win a single game in any sport, and we're still going to have 2 or 3 graduations a year. We're going to have, a few 100,000 alumni. We're going to have students. I mean, there's so many people to support our different brands and participate in those, that we need to have something out there for them, regardless of what's going on the courts, fields, pools, whatever.
Yeah, and I think the part that gets missed is athletics is such so prominent in the U.S., right, in domestically, and I think lots of fans, that includes crossing into the pro leagues and colleges and even high schools. However, I think we've got that unique element in what you just said in terms of the graduations. We're bringing lots of students who may never go to a sporting event in their 4 years here on our campuses, and they're just prideful to be able to come to the school and get their degree and then go off and like we like to say here at Texas, what starts here changes the world is our theme. And, we're hoping that all of our kids that come here and come through school here go on and do that. And I think they want to have that pride. And part of me takes that as a real important aspect of our job responsibility, right? Not to do things that are going to really hinder it, no matter what might be trendy at the time, whether that's design, a logo, a mark, a product, or whatever. It's always just making sure that you're doing the right thing that matches with your institution and how you want to be represented and what it represents. I didn't go to school here at Texas, but I've been here for 27 years now, and I think I've got a pretty good sense of that and understanding. And it takes a little bit of time, but I think you start to learn that, and it's everybody's doing that that's working in our industry and working at their institution.
Oh, yeah. So I do want to start back at the beginning of the 27 years and get a little bit of history. I saw MTV's going off the air at the end of the year, which is crazy.
Wow.
But you started in 1998 when MTV was like the thing, right? So just rewind back to 1998. How did you get into the role with Texas? Just give us a little bit of a background of how you got to where you are today.
It's kind of when I reflect on it, Jason, it's really interesting because we had moved to Austin. My wife had a job opportunity here. She's originally from Fort Worth, went to school here at Texas, so she knew about Austin, had a job opportunity. So we moved here for that. And I was trying to get in on campus, and I started working as a temp. And so my first introduction to licensing was as a temp working in the licensing office down at the system office downtown. And we were in the process of the gentleman who started and really created the licensing program was retiring. And we were in the process of doing an RFP to work with an agency. At that time, it was LSP and CLC, and I'm forgetting what I think it was. I'm getting the name wrong of who it was out of Michigan.
Okay, yeah.
I can't think of what it was. Dick Rademacher was part of that, and Lewis was part of it. So anyway, can't remember the name, but we were going through all that. So I was learning all that. So I spent 4 months as a temp working in the office, managing an independent licensing program, processing all the paperwork, faxing the applications and the agreements back and forth, and artwork would come via fax. So if you can imagine black and white artwork coming through and trying to discern whether the logo is used correctly and the circle R's and TMs and those kinds of things, it came through pretty skewed frequently. And then after that time, I think the academic year started, so they hired me on full time, and I spent a couple years as the assistant to the director. And that director, she took a role on the academic side teaching, which was really what her main work was and her focus. And so she moved back to the teaching academic side, and I just kind of, since we're small offices, right, there's one or two people, and generally, I became the director in 2001, and since then have kind of taken on some additional responsibilities. And I should say we selected CLC about that time in 98, and so we've been with them since that time, and so it's been quite a trail as I've moved through that. We reported to the VP for Legal Affairs. And again, we know our offices all report to different areas within campus. Just depend. It's kind of a crapshoot to decide where it is. And then in 2007, her portfolio was reorged, and I moved and started reporting under the athletics department. So that's kind of where I've been since 07.
Okay, and so you mentioned the system. So at this point, you don't have anything to do with the rest of the system. You're just UT Austin? Or?
Well, we still, so part of that, it's a good question. So it was always UT system. And so when it moved to campus, to the Austin campus, part of the deal was we would continue as an office to manage all of the UT system institutions.
Okay, that makes
sense.
So
we have maintained that since that time. It includes schools like UT San Antonio, UTEP, the Arlington campus. There's 13 in all. We've added recently in the last 2 years, Stephen F. Austin. So there's quite a few institutions that fall under that system management still, which Paul Eikenberry, who works in my office, he focuses on those schools, and I focus on the Austin campus and kind of what that program and the direction of that particular program.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, 13 brands. That's a lot to keep up with.
And they're all different, right? I mean, they all have their own mascot, their own color schemes and variations. And so they're not huge programs by any means, but they're significant enough. And every program has, you need someone managing it. You need that licensing expertise, right? Yeah. To understand how licensing works. It's amazing how many people really don't understand how royalties work, right? That they're based off a wholesale price. It's not, you're not making, $50 on a polo that's selling for $100. I think that
would be nice.
Perception.
Yeah, that would be really nice. Yeah, it is. We always talk about it. We're the pennies, the retailers, the dollars, but at this, they have the risk of buying it and putting it on the shelf and waiting for it to sell. So they have a little more skin in the game there, but it is a small portion that goes back to campus.
Well, to take that a little bit further, you start to think about the kind of revenue that our offices are able to generate, and you think about how small that is, and think about the number of items that have to get sold to make up that number, right? Whether that's $100,000 or $1 million, you've got to sell you got to make a lot of 10 or 15 cents or maybe up to $1, I suppose, on some items. To get to that number. So it's hard, I think, for people to fathom that.
Yeah. So I know you attended Iowa, right? You played golf there. Is that
yes.
right? So grew up in Iowa, I think. So
correct.
Just talk a little bit about your opportunity to go play college golf. I mean, that's just a huge opportunity to take advantage of.
I probably, I think it was really a privilege to be recruited and play golf and have those teammates and spend those 4 years being competitive in that world. Met a lot of my met a lot of folks in that were athletes across the other sports, and kind of engaging with them, which was really it was a great experience. I've always been a proponent of athletics. I think it's a great teacher, whether it's elementary school all the way to the college level. I think there's lessons to be learned. I think there's lots of value in it. It was I wasn't what I like to describe it as in golf is golf. They take the top 5 players and then they take the top 5 scores of those players that play in the tournament. I was more like a 7th player. So periodically I was in the top 5, but more often I was sitting just outside of the top 5. So I was just good enough to be on the team. And I guess today we would call that a recruited walk-on. Was my role, but I think it's a great experience to deal with teammates and understanding what it takes to have you got to have that discipline. You've got to show up for practices. You've got to show up for meetings. You've got to do all those things that you're required to do. And golf's unique in that you're kind of out there on your own, and it's just you.
Yeah.
And you gotta make it happen. So I think the the time I spent with competitive golf was a valuable lesson for me, and just trying to understand how to manage through things and be responsible and really develop.
Yeah. Are you still playing a lot of golf? Play much golf? Play any golf?
No, I don't. And everybody says, why don't you play more? It's nice. It's, beautiful weather. We live in the South, right? So should get out more. But, I think probably what I don't tell them enough is, I say, well, work. And I say that like it's a negative. I really enjoy what I do. I really love the industry we're in. I've got a passion for what we do and how we manage our licensing programs, how we, again, what you said earlier with your question, right? How we're collegial, how we want to share information, we want to have exchanges, we want to give best practices to folks, and I think I just really enjoy it so much that it's not I don't wake up in the morning and go, oh God, I got to go to work. I wake up in the morning and go, man, I really get to go and do something that's fun and enjoyable, and I've got a passion for it. There's certain elements of every job that are, a little stressful and strenuous, but generally it's truly enjoyable for me to be in the industry, work at the University of Texas, and have great colleagues like yourself and all of the members that are part of the ICLA family.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when our hobbies and our job kind of intersect. Like, basketball starts soon, and my wife and I love to go to basketball games. She loves them because they're a little faster. Football is a commitment to all day. Basketball, you show up at 10 till 7, we do the national anthem, and we play ball, and we're going. But yeah, it's like that's our hobby, but I'm not exactly working while I'm there, but kinda. And so, yeah, to your point, it becomes more than a job and kind of a lifestyle almost.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, football and what it takes to execute on a football game day and what I take responsibility for in terms of being here, helping our retail that I oversee as well, making sure that the activations, just being here, participating across all of the staff that have to be here, and the responsibility that we have and support of all of the folks, at least on our external team that I'm under. I think that's, it makes for really long days, but it's funny you bring up basketball. I really enjoy the basketball games because they just feel like they get over quick. You can get there early,
yep,
kind of see what's happening with our retail sales there. It's not as big of a crowd. I love watching the fans to see what they wear and what they're, how they're representing, and even visiting fans, right, to see what they're doing and kind of what, it's hard to get that exposure to what's going on at everybody else's campus, or designs, or how their logos might be represented, or what their fans or themes are. You don't always get those, and that's what I enjoy about going to all the events that we have on campus.
We often say we'll notice somebody wearing something, and you don't want them to think you're staring at them. Like, I'm looking at your shirt because I want to know about the shirt. So just know I'm just looking at your shirt.
I'm not staring you down. I'm trying to discern exactly what this phrase means that's on your shirt. I'm missing the context here of it related to your institution.
Exactly. Well,
or to our institution even.
Exactly. Like, what? Now, I don't know that one. What is that associated with? What is your student org or whatever?
Right. Exactly.
I'm going to pivot just a second, but Craig Westemeier joining me today on the Sewing Concepts Hot Market Hotline. I know, along with ICLA, you're involved across the industry in both FLA and WRC. Just take a minute and talk about kind of what your role has been with those two organizations, and for anybody that doesn't know, just a little bit about what they are all about.
Yeah, I think this. The background on this briefly is, in the mid-'90s, there were some issues around a woman by the name Kathy Lee Gifford, and she was well known as a talk show, kind of the Kelly Ripa of today. She was kind of that was kind of her position, and she was pretty well known. They literally found child labor at some factories where she was producing some of her branded product. And so this became a very high profile scenario in terms of where products are being manufactured and under what those conditions are. And so what evolved out of that is the Fair Labor Association. And it was created to really start to look at how and create these fair practices and a code of conduct to hold brands accountable to, based off of, just general labor standards here in the U.S. And our students became active really across the country, right? I think at a lot of institutions, and they became very active in regard to trying to understand where is this apparel? This has my school brand on it. I want to know that it's made in a fair scenario for those workers making that and producing it. And I give them credit in that they asked that. I don't know that, if we hadn't been asked, we would have looked into it. And I was new, right? This was kind of the end of the 90s when I had come on board. We learned about the FLA and we joined the FLA. Subsequently, in about 2001, the Workers' Rights Consortium, WRC, FLA stands for Fair Labor Association, WRC Workers' Rights Consortium, and they came into play, and they were both organizations were focused on how do we get this worker treatment fair at these factories. We're hearing these stories, we're hearing these reports. How do we investigate it? How do we audit it? How do we hold brands accountable? How do we get brands to make sure they're doing the right things? And just trying to create a baseline to make sure that all these things were happening, that we, again, were being asked by our students. We were being asked by faculty. We were, our presidents were hearing that. So we were figuring out how to do that. The differentiator in the two organizations is the FLA has brands that are part of the membership group, and it's not just licensee brands. It's we've had Nestle has been a member in different ways. I'm trying to think just off the top of my head. We've had suppliers that are members as well. So actual factories that are producing the product, they've become members of the FLA. So that's the difference. And then the Workers' Rights Consortium has a part of its board is made up of students, and that student organization is called United Students Against Sweatshops, which kind of came up through this process as well for the students to organize across the country and really hold people like myself and you accountable for, hey, where are your school, where are our school products being manufactured, and what are those conditions? And so that's sort of this short summation of it. I think the organizations have the same end goal. They go about it a little bit differently just because of the way that they're focused and how they're focused. But I think I do think we've had an impact. I think there's been improvement. It's hard. It's a hard business to address. There's so many factories. There's so many challenges with the international aspect of it that you're trying to investigate issues, trying to hear workers and give them a voice, and making sure that you're doing it. But I think one of the things that I'm a proponent of is I think schools need to be asking licensees, hey, what are you doing? Are you aware of this? Are you doing things? Yeah. Are you taking some actions? Rather than just the perspective is we'll just source from the cheapest factory. We don't really care. We don't care about how the workers are treated. We just care about getting our product on time, getting it the right way, and getting it delivered to us. So, I think that's I think that's the ask, I would say, as my work on those two boards is just that our colleagues across the country at least pay attention to it, make their licensees aware of it and the importance of it. You'd hate to find out that your particular institution had a facility that was that had some major issues with their workers, and there's been factory collapses, there's been fires. You wouldn't want to be associated with that. So it's in your interest in the long run to make sure that you're asking and have awareness of these kinds of things, and asking your licensees to have some sort of plan to at least ask, right? And delve into this and be conscious of it.
And I know talking about, educating and getting folks to ask the questions and to make sure they're going the extra mile. You've also, I think, done a little teaching. So just curious on that. How much of the when you teach, how much of the factory stuff do you go into, and just kind of how do you develop? What are your highlights you want to hit as you're letting people know about licensing? Because, like you said earlier, a lot of people just don't quite understand what we're up to over here.
Yeah, great. It is. I think we reached out to our division of apparel and textiles and started talking with a couple of the professors over there. They became really interested in what we do. The students typically had kind of looked at being a buyer for a retailer, or going into brand, or doing creative, style, designer type scenarios. And what they were intrigued about is it was kind of another pathway for these students, right? Another avenue for postgraduate to obtain a job. And so what we've created is a class called Strategic Brand Management. And then we've collaborated with industry leaders to come in and present. So I'm not lecturing every day, but
bummer.
We're trying to bring experts in to the classroom who can speak to all of the different aspects of our industry. We're even bringing in licensees to talk, and we're talking, and I'm engaging with some other brands to come in and have them talk about how they manage their program. For the initial few years, we really focused on Texas and the licensing and how we run our operations, and just exposing them to our industry, and that there is this field and this opportunity on the college campus where there are licensing directors, and here's the things that they're managing. We talk about trademark law and trademark infringement. So we have a presentation on that. We have a presentation on just the consumer data aspect. We have, how do we pull that together? Retail channels. Just how do we look at different ways that you can manage your program and manage your licensee base and the processes associated with all of that. And then, of course, we do have a piece on corporate social responsibility, and I have to give big credit to Casey Shalito, who brings that in, and she's got a great presentation where she talks through scenarios, and the students have to engage and sort of decide, okay, how would you handle this scenario? And it really creates a great debate and discussion as it relates to corporate social responsibility, and how, as a brand, you're going to manage an issue that you become aware of a factory that you're sourcing from. So we try to cover all the aspects of it. I do a lot of talking about how we want this to be really practical for those students. So my role is, while we have these experts, is to come in and talk about exactly, okay, well, here's a scenario at Texas that kind of fits with how we dealt with it and how we handle it, how we manage it. And it could be just, how do you look at a licensee application, and what makes you decide whether or not you want to license a company? Just what are those factors? And here's how we do it, right? You may look at it differently at Auburn, but generally we're trying to just get the concepts of how you're making the assessment, how you're looking at the licensing application, what's involved with it as well, and those key components that we're trying to delve out of those licensees to understand how they're going to add value to a program. In our case, it's been around for 45 years. So, we've evolved over that time, but at some point, another T-shirt company's not necessarily what we need. Yeah. But they're, keeping yourself open to that and what the potential might be.
Yeah,
Trends.
I think
fashion.
The scenario discussion is great. A great way to learn. You can throw a curveball in there. It's almost like, all right, well, here's the situation. Okay, now here's a piece of information I didn't tell you, and now here's that piece of information. How does that change what you're doing now? So it's that's a great way to learn. So that's fun. I'm sure the students really enjoy it.
Yeah, we really couch it as really real world, real practical applications of what we're going to give you some of the basis in the initial part of the class, and then we're going to build toward. They just presented. They had to take and find a way to apply the knowledge that we've given them and do a presentation on that and then create a class discussion. And so they've really, I think we've really furthered the class and it develops it to make sure that they can take what they're learning and then applying it without making it like taking a test of questions like who is a mass channel, what would be a mass channel retailer, right? Or something exactly. Like that, or trying to, right or wrong answers. Because I think in our industry, right or wrong is based on where your program is, what makes sense, what's going to create more value, where it's developed. Those things all factor in. It's not always just a yes or no. You've got to take everything else into account as you're looking at what's best for your program, what's best for the brand, how do you develop it, how do you create co-branded products, right? With Marvel or Star Wars, or these students tend to look at like Balenciaga and the Louis Vuitton, and they look at all of these high-end luxury brands, even rattling off some that I've never even heard of that they talk about in terms of how do you do some collabs with them, and how those brands work and extend from maybe an apparel brand to doing eyewear or scarves or footwear. So they've kind of been able to make that connection with these luxury brands that they tend to know because of the fashion aspect and textile aspect. But they kind of sync that up with what we do in kind of the license, t-shirt, hat, fleece scenario. So
fun to be on a college campus and just have so many new ideas and fresh, perspectives on things. I mean, so it can wear you out sometimes. But it is great to go, oh gosh, I've never thought about that. Thank you. Thank you for your creativity here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what I've enjoyed really being on the campus is, I haven't gotten a lot of exposure to students. I've been able to talk to some classes over my time, but we've got a lot of young people that work in our marketing and creative services, and just engaging with them. And it I suppose it shouldn't shock me, but it still does, about just how sharp these people that are, 30 years younger than me, how smart they are, how aware, how much more knowledgeable than I ever was at their age about the world, and just their thoughtfulness, their creativeness, in terms of how they develop either a marketing plan or develop social media posts or take photography. It's really it's a great I think it's a great exposure for me to kind of have that. I think it kind of keeps you young too.
Oh, no doubt.
As you interact with all of these high energy college age or recently college graduates.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm going to do one more pivot, and then we'll begin to bring it to a conclusion. We can't do a college licensing podcast and not talk NIL. You have an athlete on campus with a famous last name, who is kind of an NIL darling from the beginning. So talk a little bit about how you've managed the process with someone that was already so well known and had such a well known family before they even got on campus.
Yeah, I think there was certainly some concern and maybe some caution on my part about how would this come about, and what would the challenges be in terms of the opportunities that he was going to have presented to him, and how we would sort of manage through the nuances of NCAA compliance, making sure we're doing those things, the sponsorship program we have, the licensing that we have, the arrangements and relationships that we have. And what really has come out of that is because of just his family and the notoriety, they were really buttoned up in terms of ensuring that they brought to the table an understanding that, yes, all these factors are going to come into play, and we're going to make sure that we do things the right way. We're going to communicate them really professional in the way they've done. And an example is we have a sponsorship with Monster Energy drink. Well, he ended up doing a deal with Red Bull. So you can imagine all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, this is going to create all kinds of issues. Well, when he actually did some of the Red Bull, I guess he did an interview. He did it in a neutral locker room. They didn't ask to use our campus. He wore neutral colors, didn't wear anything that was burnt orange, didn't have anything that was even close to Texas. The background was just a generic looking sort of a locker room kind of interview that he did. So very clean, not even getting close to what we would have concerns about, right? Yeah. That would be conflict. And I think, he's continued to do that as he's created and done different brand relationships that he's had. You probably have seen, he does a Warby Parker commercial, again, wearing very neutral, white, gray type, not wearing like a burnt orange shirt or an even orange shirt that would be close to ours. So it's been kind of refreshing because I think initially NIL was really challenging. It was, everybody was just trying to help identify that they were at Texas, but not. And he and his team have been really easy to work with and understanding the dynamics of what we're trying to manage, right, as an institution, as an athletic department, to ensure that we're not conflicting with the relationships and partnerships that we have with sponsors.
Sure. Okay, a couple quick hitters to wrap us up. We've got, licensing people are always getting these questions, so want to throw them at you. I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but strangest product request you've ever received? Oh, or the quickest one to your mind, anyway.
Got it easy. This is the go-to for me. Physician's paper.
Like on the paper you sit on while you wait?
Exactly, okay. Exactly. That you pull across the table and you sit, and it's really crinkly. We had gotten a request for that, for physician's paper, and they were going to print it all over it. We declined it. I didn't get it. It didn't make a lot of sense to me, so we declined it. I will say, though, much like a consumable, anything that gets used up and you have to buy it again, unlike a T-shirt that maybe you buy every couple of years, it was intriguing, but we ended up declining that physician's paper opportunity.
Well, that is an interesting one for sure. Yeah, that that's like the most unnerving part about the doctor is having to sit on that crinkly paper. So you don't want a brand experience in that also. Yeah,
it didn't make sense. It was just I couldn't quite get my head around. This was years ago. This was 15 plus years ago that this came up, and I just couldn't get my head around why this would be a good idea for us.
That's a good one. I'm going to write that one down. I mean, obviously it's your story, but it's still a good one. Okay, so favorite product that's crossed your desk. Maybe not the best, maybe not the best selling, but just you were like, this is cool, and I got to get one of these.
I think my favorite product was because we went round and round on it was a branding iron. And it wasn't actually a branding iron for a cow or a cattle. It was a branding iron for like your food, or you could do it for a hamburger bun or something like that. And I didn't understand it at first. And we spent so much time trying to get there because I thought it made so much sense being in Texas with cattle and ranches and all of that. So I was really pushing for us to approve that. But I think that branding iron was really the most interesting product that I remember coming across, and one that I was just like, that's pretty cool. I like this idea. This is good. And I pushed to get it approved. There was some hesitation, but we got it over the hurdle of the legal affairs of Green that it was okay.
Yeah, putting your logo on a hot metal stick. I know legal folks are going to go
supposed to heat up and yeah.
Just stick it in the fire. It'll be okay. Okay, and the last one. We travel a lot. You and I have traveled recently to some of the same places. So, favorite road trip or airport snack, your go-to? You pop in the Hudson News or the Parodies or the Chevron or the Buc-ee's or wherever it is. What are you grabbing?
What is my? It probably like cherry Twizzlers.
Cherry Twizzlers
Would be my go-to.
All right.
The cherry, where you can pull them apart. You can pull them apart in a little. Yeah.
Choose what size snack you want.
Yeah, the cherry Twizzlers. I usually end up eating the whole bag.
Yeah. I mean, it's a favorite snack for a reason, right?
It's a favorite snack. I got to be careful not to buy too large of one because then.
Yeah, right. Eating the whole bag is relative, depending on the size of the bag. Yes. For sure. Well, Halloween's coming, so make sure to get some for the trick-or-treaters and keep a few back.
I will definitely have to do that for sure.
For sure. Well, Craig, thanks so much for joining us today. I know all of ICLA and whoever finds the ICLA podcast License to Lead Business Behind the Brand is going to be intrigued and interested to hear what you had to say.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you, and thanks for everything you do to put the podcast together. And I know it's not easy to carve out time and prep and all of that you do, Jason. So I wouldn't be fair to at least acknowledge all that work that you do, and certainly the ICLA board and in terms of supporting it, because I think we do need to continue to expose people to our industry. There's a great opportunity out there, and hopefully some people see it, come across it, and get intrigued to where they actually pursue the different opportunities as it relates to our industry.
Yeah, that would be great. We're recruiting interns out here, and the next generation. For sure. Well, all right, Craig, thanks, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, Jason.
This episode is brought to you by Old Hat Creative, the nation's leader in sports creative. Looking to take your brand to the next level? Old Hat has been partnering with college and professional athletic organizations for 2 decades, helping more than 200 teams elevate their brands. From logo design and branding to facility graphics, video production, research, web development, and more, they've got you covered. Old Hat Creative, your ultimate sports branding partner. For more information, visit oldhatcreative.com or follow them at Old Hat Creative.